Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Hoop Room at Hoopsters, the League of Action Heroes. As you are aware, we try our best to address topics that are relevant and provide answers to questions that many are seeking but are afraid to ask. We take great pride in the fact that we bring to you domain experts who have been there and done that, for we believe that there is no substitute to experience and there is a lot to learn from them. Today, as part of our creating exposure towards unconventional careers, we are discussing a very interesting topic, the joy of archaeology. And it is a Hoopsters League of Action Heroes special. We have with us Sonika Sandhu, Doctoral Research Scholar, AIHC, and Department of Archaeology. She talks about what life is like as an archaeologist and explains how history is relevant to day-to-day life. Thank you, Sonika. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to meet people who are, doing something as different as archaeology. We actually had somebody who's into paleontology recently. It's quite an interesting thing that in 10 days, I met my first paleontologist and my first archaeologist. But you get one step ahead because you are both a paleontologist and an archaeologist, which is very interesting. So, yeah. So thank you for coming here, and for all those in the audience who are joining in, please feel free to ask questions. But for the initial stage, just type it down in the chat box, and we will give you a chance to ask questions by end of it. And this is a question I ask everybody on my show, Sonika. The first question is, why did you agree to come on the show?
So, sir, as I was saying that nowadays people have started actually looking at unconventional ways to look at conventional subjects also. So now it is not only restricted to just studying history. They want to know why, what happened. So other subjects, multidisciplinary subjects like archaeology is getting a chance. Because when I did my graduation, nobody gave me this offer or nobody gave me this choice of doing this subject. But now people are already getting into it. Plus CBSE has also opened up the streams. So now you can take history with maths, which is a very good thing for architecture, for people who want to look at ancient monuments. So I thought maybe if they will know that there is a lot of mix and match which can happen at graduation and even at higher levels.
You said history and maths. I think it's a fabulous combination.
Yes.
Why do you think these two have got some kind of relationship?
So because see, in history, actually, if you look at it, everything we are doing has got some maths to it. We measure each and everything while doing an excavation, while picking up an artifact. We measure the distance between inscriptions, between letters. We measure bones. We are measuring everything. So measurement is the key, analysis for any kind of scientific study. And in history, it even makes more sense because where you don't have artifactual data, mathematics is coming in to solve problems. Like Vedic maths is slowly catching on. One of the ways people are trying to understand Indus Valley script is by mathematically calculating it. So like this, there's a lot of correlation to it, association with maths. So I think it is important to pair these two also.
That's interesting. I think I always believed in it.
So can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you loud and clear, but your video is stuck. So, let's see how it goes. Doesn't matter. I think what you're talking is quite exciting. So,
yeah.
So tell me, Sonika, why did you agree to the title of Joy of Archaeology? When you first described
because I feel it is high time. Because actually it is the first instant when you discover your first artifact, when you're first time on field, it is a thrill, and it is high time people understand the analysis which goes behind historical facts and how we are stating history. There is a lot of science behind it. So, and it is not cumbersome, it is not technical, it is not something very difficult. It is available, it is accessible. So obviously for me, it is a very joyful subject. Even today, if you give me one day off, I will sit and watch documentaries on archaeology. So it is absolute joy to see something for the first time, to be just, to look at something from the first point of view.
Okay, now so coming to the question, what is archaeology? Let's come to some basics.
Okay, so very subjectively saying, archaeology is the scientific study of past data. Now, history is only 99, is just 1% of our evolutionary past. Because history starts from where we start documenting things, and more so from where we can start reading them correctly, right? So we started, or putting our thoughts and cognitive reactions on any kind of a writing surface. So all that is history. But before that, we have a 2.3 million year old past. Studying of that is archaeology. So archaeology actually has got a lot of, the span is much greater. The kind of evidence that we see is much, much higher. And it is not subjugated to what is being written. We have to look at things which are besides what is being written.
Sonika, we are losing you.
So
Sonika,
we can't rely on written data. We have to look at, analyze, look at everything, look at the whole picture. Okay, now?
Yeah, but your audio is quite okay, but your video is...
Okay, now, so can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you are frozen. Yeah, it's okay. Let's do it, but I think it's still... Okay,
I think because of the... maybe this might just catch on a bit after a while. Because... yes.
Your bandwidth is slightly low.
I can hear you, sir. Yeah.
That's okay. What's the difference between history and archaeology?
So, sir, as I was saying...
We lost you.
Hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So history is study of the written word, and archaeology is basically analysis of everything besides that. Yes, we do study inscriptions in epigraphy. We do look at tamra patras, and we look at certain what you call as engravings and all, but we do not regard it as history. And history has got a lot of point of views. But in archaeology, until the matter gets peer reviewed, it gets accepted internationally, there is not many point of views to it. If it is a pottery shirt, it is a pottery shirt until there's a context to it. So that way it is much more. History otherwise, see, if in a particular dynasty, if a king wants, he can write any glorification sermons for him. He can get them written. But is that the actual picture? What was his reign like? What was the condition of the very clearly? It comes through other evidences, and those evidences come under archaeology. Like looking at the kind of luxury items which we get in excavations, the trade networks that we see, the kind of pottery that was being made. So all these give us an idea about what really happened, not what is being said. History is what was being said, what is being written.
But again, isn't it, when you find some things in your excavations, could they also not be really wrong? I mean, they might just tell you one part of the story. So by assuming that as history, wouldn't you be making a mistake somewhere?
Yes, so in an excavation, the first evidence that we get is never regarded, and the first observation is never, it is not regarded, it is documented. So if let's say if I find a Harappan seal tomorrow in a trench, I know it is a Harappan seal, but then if I just go and tell somebody, see, I found a seal, it is not going to have any value because it has got no scientific data to it, it has got no analysis to it. So now how do I corroborate this evidence is by saying that, okay, this seal was found at this site. It was found at this depth, at this age. Around it, there were so and so materials. With this seal, I found a faience bead, which makes it a trade network. So we look at the whole thing, and then we give a historical point of view to it. Okay, possibly this seal was of a trader who was trading in faience beads, which are coming in from Afghanistan. So that network gets established. So one piece of evidence does not stand on its own. You need to have the context to it. So that is why actually in the early stages of archaeology, what is the colonial archaeology, the Britishers and all were just only interested in picking up artifacts. So they did not record the context of it. Context is what you get the artifact in. If in a trench, if I'm getting it in around it, what was the soil? What is the depth? What is the association? Were there any bones? Was there any funeral objects? All that is context. So all of that got lost. So today, many of these artifacts which have been recovered are just museum pieces. You don't know the history behind it. Okay, this is a sculpture. Now, what was around the sculpture when it was discovered is not known. So most of the information in archaeology comes from the context. We call this as the context. And it happens in any field, like even in paleontology, if I pick up a fossil, I am not supposed to remove the dirt of it, because that dirt is the context. I'm supposed to take that dirt away and analyze it also.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now that we sort of understood what archaeology is, I'm sure we'll all claim to be experts tomorrow, but that's the fun part of doing these things. What's your personal journey like, Sonika? I mean, somebody like you trying to get into paleontology in a society which doesn't even know how to spell it. I don't know how to spell archaeology and paleontology. That AE and O, I never get it right. So in this situation, how did you manage to choose a subject like this?
So paleontology happened by chance, by fluke. So I was always I would say a good student, not the top A student or something. So back in the day, it was thought that, okay, a good student is equivalent to a science student. So then keeping that in mind, I did my BSc and MSc in physiology and zoology. But then somewhere in me, I wanted to do history. Actually, my interest was history. Even I was not aware of the scope of archaeology. So in Pune, when I was based, I got through MPhil in archaeology. And on somebody's advice, I did that. And there I met my guide, who's Dr. Vijay Sathe, who's done a lot of work in paleontology. He's a professor now. So he told me this, that, see, you already have a biology base, life sciences. You understand bones. So why not you, instead of completely foregoing, your life sciences background, why don't you combine the two and look at paleontology? So he got me introduced to it. And then I learned that, yes, actually, I really like paleontology. So then I balanced both parts of my career, the social sciences part and the scientific part, to bring and, get into the field and, start my work. So I didn't want to negate my science background, but I also wanted to go ahead only in archaeology. So then I combined the two.
That's interesting. Somebody told, because you know about bones, they said get into paleontology. That's a very interesting thing. I think I would have expected that person to tell you get into orthopedics,
Yeah.
Okay. Again. So tell me one thing, is archaeology and paleontology, are like relatives? Is it one a part of other, same discipline? What is it like?
So I would say that to understand, see, you can do paleontology on your own, but then it will be like starting somewhere in the middle run. You will not have a base. So archaeology is, you can say, is the major field, and paleontology, archaeometry, archaeozoology, archaeobotany, all these are subfields or super specializations within archaeology. These are different ways in which we look at the archaeological data which is coming in. So paleontology is definitely a part of archaeology, because I know very successful paleontologists also who are my seniors, who have got no base of sciences, or some of them don't even know archaeology, no sciences, but they all know archaeology. They all know what they're looking at in the field. So I would say archaeology is a must if you want to know what you're looking at. And subsequently, life sciences is something which you can always pick up.
That's interesting. Okay, now that you have chosen your subject and you're following somebody who said get into old bones, and you come from a family of army officers. Your father was one of the two men in your life where both army professionals.
Yes.
So didn't they hit the roof when they heard you saying that I'll do something like this?
No, in fact, I think it is a very good thing to be married to such people because they keep getting posted. So you keep seeing new sites. We are first. So now we are in Jodhpur. So now I'm going to pester my husband to take me around Rajasthan for fossil hunting. In fact, my guide is also very happy. My professor used to like, good, that way you'll explore India more. I said,
Oh, nice.
okay.
But when you started studying the subject, was it your family circle and the society around you? When they very questioning to you, or didn't they tell you why you're wasting your time and stuff like that?
So, sir, actually, to tell you the truth, my father, I was actually not in favor of me taking history. He said he was in that same concept, state of mind, and no, you do science. His only reasoning was that science will open up more options for you. So in those days, and fine, BSc was a natural thing. I didn't want to get into medicals and all because I knew it is not for me. And so got into BSc, automatically got pushed into an MSc because that seemed to be the next step. Now, once my post-graduation was done, somewhere I felt then I was free to do what I want. And then I did my MPhil. And when I was doing MPhil, then they did not obviously question me because they said, okay, now, you can explore. So, and luckily for me, and unfortunately for the Indian scenario, archaeology is not offered as a graduation course anywhere. It is only offered as a post-graduation course, and that too only in Pune. And in some universities in Delhi and Madras Presidency College, they give you archaeology as a subject in your master's in your history or social sciences. So I had no scope also. I had no idea that, okay, I can join a college where I can study it for 2 years. So we are still far behind in archaeology, giving it as a conventional, degree and allowing it as a course.
Okay. Now that we have spoken about your entry into the whole field, let's get some very basic subject matters, which I'm sure a lot of people would want to understand. Is what is the biggest misconception that people have around paleontology and archaeology? Or do they have people have any conception at all? Forget misconceptions.
So in paleontology, the biggest, I won't say misconception, yes, but the biggest interest lies only in dinosaurs. So even today when I go to field, people are more interested to know ki acha dinosaurs kahan hai, ye hai, not realizing that the fossil data is much more expansive and India is has a much richer fossil history besides dinosaurs. Now I'll tell you, sir, an interesting story which was told to me by my seniors and my professors. So in 1970s, somewhere near Nasik, there was an excavation going on. It was on the this river, Manjra River. It is in Maharashtra. So one night or one morning or whenever, the local farmers came running to the archaeologist saying that demons are coming out of the earth. They are coming out of the earth. And when our professors went to check what it was, they were actually hippo fossils. Hippo. Now, hippo fossils have got very strong canines. So they thought that they were horns and they destroyed them. So now if people knew that, you get hippo fossils in this part of the country, like today Maharashtra, you can't even think had hippos. But at one point of time in the Pleistocene, that is 60, 70,000 years ago, Maharashtra was a marshland. It was a very good environment for hippos and these kind of animals. So you had these animals here, but people don't know. So what did that lead to? Destruction of data, unnecessary chaos, people getting worried ki what has happened, demons are coming in, temple puja started begin, people started doing rituals and sacrifices. So these kinds of things is very common in our field. Even I have personally seen it. So this is where myths get generated. Ki, okay, यहाँ पे राक्षस निकला था. For all you know, it might be a fossil. And in archaeology, the firstly, people don't really know what is going on, and it is very restrictive to finding gold. If you're doing excavation anywhere, they just want to know खजाना मिला, क्या मिला, क्यों मिला. And if you give a hint, like, we are told when we begin, that do not show any excitement in the trenches. You might get excited about a potsherd or about a piece of bone, but people around you will think you have found gold, and before you know it, they'll come at night and completely dig up the entire site. So you have to be, those kinds of misconceptions are there, that we are looking for gold. Wherever you dig, you're going to find gold only.
That's very interesting. Okay. Okay, why is archaeology important?
So as I said, it is very important. See, first of all, it'll broaden your mind. It will give you an idea that what you see today is not a permanent state. Indian subcontinent, or any matter, any subcontinent or landmass, has undergone numerous changes, and how it has evolved. It gives you the evolutionary history of the entire area. It makes you more appreciative of the kind of animals which were there, which are going to be there, and how they are also evolving. And it also makes you more tolerant about your people. Like in archaeology, we do not, though I'm from a defense background, in my home it is India, Pakistan, which goes on. But the fact is that I don't talk of Pakistan like that. For me, it is the Indian subcontinent. For me, Indian subcontinent means Pakistan, Bangladesh, the entire this place. There are no boundaries, international boundaries for me which exist, because it's an entire landmass for me which has evolved. Also, like as I said, if you do not educate people that what is it in the soil, they're not going to value it tomorrow if it comes out. They need to be told that, okay, this was a history. They should take some pride in it. Like for example, in Rakhi Gadi, it is the largest, presently now it is the largest Indus Valley site. So a couple of years ago, when the excavations were starting, people had no interest. In fact, you used to have collectors and politicians coming in and saying ki ye log to mitti se khel rahe hain, let them play. But today, now that people have understood that Rakhi Ghat is such an important site, they take pride in it. The villages, they take you around themselves, they show you कि यहाँ पे ये मिला था, यहाँ पे ये मिला था. A museum is coming up, an interpreting center is coming up. They consciously do not disturb sections and stratigraphy. They respect your work, and they, so that sense of pride is coming in. They're trying to revive a lot of age-old customs, like the black and red glazeware, Harappan glazeware. They keep trying to make it. So a sense of pride comes in, a sense of belonging comes in. Delusionment of the Aryan theory somewhere, that has also got, the racist ideologies also change. You start understanding that, okay, like tribals are not backward at all. They are maybe a gene pool of information of how to survive. So you start respecting, and you start becoming more tolerant. So I feel
Nice
it's
to
very
hear.
important.
Talk to people who are very articulate about what they want to say. Now, tell me, Sonika, what is a typical day of an archaeologist like?
So our days start very early. Morning, we get up at 4 o'clock in field, that is, because the first photography which happens of the site, which allows us the sun's particular angle, it opens the site for us visually. We are able to see shadows being cast, any superlative or superimposed structures we are able to see. Obviously, with training it comes. So at 4 o'clock, we are on site, we begin the photography, and then we do a site inspection. And in fact, my professors used to be so paranoid that they would reach sometimes, because sites are mostly in very remote areas. So they would reach a site at late in the night at 12 or 1, but then they would insist that no, we have to see the site first. So after 4 o'clock photography, we do a site inspection. We document everything, stray matter on the surface. We just start walking around the perimeter to check. And then we have a typical village breakfast at 7. And then after that, we begin the day's activities. Now, depending upon what kind of a site it is, the activity is planned. So if it is a dynastic site, or if it is a historical site, that would require excavations. Generally, horizontal excavations are being followed in the country. At a time, we do not open the entire site. We only open 10% of a site because we want to leave the future site, the site for future archaeologists. So tomorrow, if they have better technology, they can analyze the data better. So analyzing 10% of a site would mean only putting in 3 to 4 trenches. So then it depends that, okay, if your trenches are being laid out or they're already laid in a grid way, then you start the digging. Once the digging starts, we start sifting through each and every layer of soil. Whatever soil has been collected, it is put on a mesh and it is shaken. Whatever artifacts are remained, they are documented. Each artifact, from a single piece of bangle to maybe, as I said, a seal, to a bead or even a coin, it is documented, put in Ziplocs, and completely kept away. During this entire process, nobody is allowed to leave the site. You cannot take photographs. You cannot, you have to be totally in it. And 1 o'clock is generally, we call it a day. And then afternoon time is when we start recording whatever we have found, because it's too hot to work. And evenings are generally, we keep it aside for analysis of what has to be, what has to go where. Like if we are looking at bones cannot be lifted directly. Bones have to be dried out in the shade, because if you lift it, it's going to break. So then if there is eschatology going on, eschatology is the study of burials. So if the excavation involves this part, then that, depending upon it, is being generated. If it is a prehistoric excavation, the trenches are very less. We are generally looking at the surface data. Where are we getting stone tools, flint, the knapping tools? Where is the debris coming in? Is it a kill site? Is it a butchery site, or was it a camp? All this is then looked at, and actually decides how you progress through the day. So there is no, this is a general pattern. And excavations generally happen in the month of winters. They start in October, November, and they go on till summer. So 6 months of excavations we have in a year.
So when you're doing these excavations, is archaeology all about digging and excavations, or is it also just coming across an old temple or an old, habitat or whatever?
It is about, it's a combination. Like sometimes, for example, old habitats, yes, suddenly or old ecosystems, suddenly if you find something that, okay, now in Rupkund, which is in the Himalayas, you have exceptionally well preserved skeletons. Now, why is that happening? Maybe there is something taphonomy in the soil, or there is some preservation factor. So it gives us a glimpse into the ecosystem. Like glacier studies are also part of archaeology, because we study ice ages through glaciers. So yes, ecosystems are also part of it, but ecosystem study is for reconstruction of what happened. And obviously, so yes, temples and all, we do look at it, because many times history is not able to provide the answer to a temple. Like for example, somebody might come up and say that, okay, what is this inscription? What does it mean? So an epigraphist will be required to translate the inscription. Somebody might ask me, like in Ajanta, a lot of study was done by Professor Walter Spink. Now he spent his life over there. The paintings were studied not only for what they're representing, they were studied for the pigments also, for the mortar also. So the mortar for Ajanta is very peculiar. It has got marijuana in it. So how did these things come about? This is what an archaeologist does. So the mortar was taken off and it was analyzed in the lab. for the components, for the pollen, for what kind of binding agent was used. So it completely looks at a structure like this. So it is a multifaceted field.
But tell me, why are Indians not very curious about their past? Well, I travel a lot and I meet a lot of people across. And all the time I hear only one thing is that somebody from America, somebody from Britain, somebody from Europe came and, they have written the history of this temple or this place, And it's very funny because I'm sure the translations, it gets lost in translation somewhere.
Yes.
And, but why is it that Indians are not curious to know about their own history?
So Indians, firstly, are curious only till it suits their own ideologies. And we have very soft egos. We cannot take contrary beliefs very easily. And yes, we are a very religious country. So many of the theories and many of the concepts in archaeology completely negate religious beliefs. So then people get very angry about it. And no, how can you say? I personally know people who still think that Satyug was there, and there were people 40, 50,000 years ago. And if I show them fossils, they will not understand that, okay, 40, 50,000 years ago, man looked a little different to what he universe, I would say. So
but
religion.
But isn't it also true that science is still evolving? Like, for example, we looked at 5,000 or 8,000 BC as the start of civilization. Now there are proofs that it's 10,000. And I'm sure as technology develops and evolves, we might rediscover a lot about history itself or civilization. So why isn't science open to these things?
Science is quite open. So in fact, most of the theories which our grand masters in archaeology have proposed in the 70s and 80s, they completely negated it by 2000 because we're getting more and more data. So that is why we realized that, okay, one should never open a site completely because we are leaving that openness in our own analysis that, okay, tomorrow somebody might come in with a better technology and will be able to tell us better. So that kind of openness and that kind of critique is accepted. It is well regarded also. But only problem in India is that, in religion with politics, then lack of, archaeology as a proper subject in schools, and the, people don't allow people to get questioned. Like, you don't like being questioned. Like teachers don't like being questioned, parents don't like being questioned, that why is this like this? So you kill curiosity. So all these things are not very good for something like archaeology, where every time you're just asking and you're trying to interpret past by looking at an object. Okay, what would this have been used? Why is this being happening? Like, for example, a lot of the materials that we get in archaeology, we get it in broken form. We don't have the entire picture. We have one potsherd is a small piece of pottery. Now, based on that, I have to reconstruct an entire pot and see, okay, now what was that used for? So a lot of ethnographic studies happen where we are trying to give old objects to tribals and to local people and ask them, okay, now how will you use it? What is the use? And they come up with a lot of innovative things. So this kind of questioning and this kind of thought process has to be developed from a very early age. They cannot be, taught later when your mind is so rigid. There was a very interesting incident. Our founding father, Dr. Sankalia, he is the father of Indian archaeology. So he was working in Mathuras in 80s. He was on an excavation. So every day people around him would come and ask him, did you find Krishna? Did you find any, proof of Krishna? Now that man was doing a prehistoric excavation. So he couldn't find anything. Finally, after a month, 2 months, 3 months of being questioned every day, he just told them, I found no evidence of Krishna. There is no Krishna according to me. So I'm so sorry. There were riots in the city. He had to be airlifted. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had to be requested for an escort out of Mathura for this man. So if this is the kind of acceptance, then how does one progress?
Yeah, since you're talking of Mathura, I think it brings to the whole thing of the Dwarka, underwater city. So what are your thoughts on that?
So my I do think so. Dwarka possibly the his archaeology, even in paleontology, when we look at reconstructions, past sea levels have been changing a lot. So possibly, yes, there was a city which was accessible, but and it was a port city. But again, once the sea levels changed, we know the sea levels changed during the one event which is called as the Younger Dryas event, which completely changed the 80-meter sea level. There was a increase in the volume, increase in the rise of sea levels. So yes, many coastal cities got coastal empires, coastal habitation sites. They did get underwater. So yes, it's a normal phenomenon. Like in Europe, there's an entire piece of land called as a Doggerland, which is today underwater, but which was a very rich prehistoric site. Man reached Australia because the entire place was connected. It was called as Sundaland. Sundaland was a complete piece of land, but today we see only islands in Southeast Asia as parts of it. So this, swallowing up of seas and habitation sites, it's a very common phenomenon. It happens.
But tell me, I mean, there's a lot of research that's happened or analysis that happened over age-old scripts. Like people are able to decipher the Sumerian script or a Mayan script and stuff like that. Why is it getting difficult for people to analyze the Indus Valley scripts?
So, sir, a script is something till the time you don't get the Rosetta Stone. I'm using it as a benchmark here because that is what allowed these scripts to be translated. I can keep, interpreting, I can keep contemplating, I can keep giving my perspective to what I feel. But till the time what it actually means, somebody confirms it in writing to me from the past, it doesn't hold any value. So that is why epigraphic studies are very, very critique based. So today what I may find like A, somebody might find it to be some other letter. So it keeps changing for every person. So the reason why these scripts got translated is because of the Rosetta Stone. They found this one stone with 3 scripts on it, and they knew one script, that is the Greek, and so they were able to translate it correctly. So hieroglyphics and Sumerian script got translated over there. Now, Indus Valley script, a lot of research is going on. Firstly, there are few characters which we know of the Indus Valley script, which we have been able to understand. Like firstly, it is a boustrophodonic script, which means that it is written from left to right continuously, like this. Then people are now trying to measure the distance between letters to understand that, okay, is this a letter or is this a preposition? What is it? Secondly, they're trying to identify any numerical value to it. So a lot of things is going on. I can keep a lot of papers come every year, and people say, okay, this means this. Some people are saying it is similar to a tribal language, the Munda and Pole. But till the time I don't find a Rosetta Stone which says, okay, this means this, nobody is going to accept my, interpretation of it. So that is why it is a problem. So we are just lacking the evidence. Once we find it, we'll be able to decipher.
When it comes to the Indus Valley especially, I mean, there is this whole concept of Sanskrit being the oldest language. At least it's a perception in the Indian scenario. What is your opinion on Sanskrit being the oldest language? If Sanskrit is the oldest language, because there's been no talk about it globally. There's only talk about it in the Indian scenario. So which means there must be some relationship, and especially it's considered coming from the northwest part of the subcontinent, the language itself. And there's still a debate on, is it Dravidian, is it not? There's still a lot of versions on that. Can't we use Sanskrit as your base to understand the Indus Valley script?
No, sir. So the character of the Sanskrit.
Okay. Before you answer this, you smiled when I asked you this question. Why was it?
So because I'll tell you why, and you'll be also surprised. But yes, in Sanskrit is a very old language. It is part of the Indo-European language families, and Sanskrit in its written form came much later, when it came into the classical form, that is. Now, Vedic Sanskrit was a very simple form. Firstly, why we cannot use it for Indus Valley script is because the character and the nature of these scripts is very different. The way they are written is also very different. Secondly, the time span between them is too much. So the Indus Valley collapsed. Okay, the time span between Vedic culture and Indus Valley is 1500 years. So you cannot compare something which is nearly 1500 years apart. Imagine now you are trying to compare something in today with something which happened in the 3rd or the 1st century. Would it be possible, contextually possible? It won't be, because a lot of knowledge has been lost in those 1500 years. Secondly, the Indus Valley civilization was an urban and a trade-based civilization, whereas Vedic culture is a rural culture. So their entire outlook towards things had changed by then. So we will not be able to get the correct connotations and meanings. Yes, I know people say that, okay, this seal has a proto Shiva on it. He looks like Shiva. But for all you know, it might be a priest sitting in the jungle with so many animals around him. So you don't know what exactly happened. So that is why we cannot compare these two.
Okay, coming back to something which I am personally interested in, I'm sure people are interested in, are the various documentaries you see on Discovery National, geography and stuff like that. And one thing which stands out on all the programs I do, is when it comes to archaeology, when it comes to, even the whole concept of aliens and, stuff like that. There's a lot of talk in terms of South America, or Siberia, or even bits of Europe to some level. Okay, but there's hardly any mention of India in the whole story. Why is that? And is it because they don't have access to our information, or it's too difficult to come here and do research? What is the situation? But I think we got a treasure trove of information in this subcontinent, right? Why is it that nobody makes an effort to know more? Like, there is this program I saw recently where you talked of the similarity across Japan, South America, Europe, the northern parts, eastern parts of Russia. There's a lot of combination of these visuals, both in terms of the content and the stories. But there was no mention of India. Absolutely not. Not a single story. And I know there are references that are very similar, which are very, very similar. Because there is a whole concept of the floods, which comes from the Christianity to certain Mayan civilization talk about it. The Japanese talks about it. India talks about it, but there is no mention of the Pralaya, which is talked about in Indian mythology. They're all similar. Why is this that the Western world is still not looking at India seriously, or is there a problem?
There is actually a lot of problems. So firstly, we have, it's very known in our field, we have academic mafiaism, where people, they take away our data, our research, and they publish it in their own ways and to enhance their own study. So for example, if my work is a standalone work, somebody from these developed countries might just take it and use my work as a proxy data to support their work. So a lot of our scientific work gets hampered here. Secondly, we don't get the kind of recognition and the government support that other conventional fields get. Like the government, I don't think in the past has been very happy about people coming and digging up things and telling them, okay, don't dig here, don't dig there, don't construct this, don't construct that, try to preserve this. So that kind of sensitivity in our own culture and government and authorities is lacking. Another thing is these cultures around the world, they have extinct cultures and civilizations, but they look at India as a continuous cultural identity. They don't understand that, okay, Vedic culture has ended. In between, we had Buddhism, we had the other dynastic rules, and we had the medieval period. They don't disassociate these things. For them, India is still a country with a continuous cultural thing. So they don't see that, okay, this has ended, so I need to study this. So there's a lot of misconception here. And because of the kind of sites that we have, the kind of variety of sites that we have, initially archaeologists, they come to India, they get lost. They don't know where to start and where to end. And many of these places are so remote that they are not accessible. In fact, Even GSI till date uses the topographic sheets which were surveyed by the Britishers because they did such a good job. Even those are not updated. So many sites are either lost. Like, for example, tomorrow somebody might come looking for a site, but now there is a railway track built over it. So then how does the research happen? So it's a mix of things.
Okay, there's going to be a lot of debate on what is right, what is wrong, where do we stand, etc. And I only hope that a lot of research takes place. So
Yes.
we actually come back and say, India has a rich value in what it can offer. So you're talking also about the Indian subcontinent. So what does Indian subcontinent actually have to offer to the world? Can you hear me?
Actually, a lot. Right from history, everything, this is one place in the entire world which has got a site from every period. We have a 1.3 million year old site in Chennai, near Chennai, called as Athirapakkam. We have Jwalapuram. These are prehistoric sites. We have the Acheulean tool culture. Like, older one is the oldest stone tool technology in the world, which was discovered in Ethiopia, Gona. So this technology is associated with our first ancestors. Now, after this is the Acheulean, the second oldest. We have the second oldest stone tools coming in from, so obviously man reached India, in the Indian subcontinent quite early, though we do not have the evidence of a man, a human fossil besides just one of, find. But then where did those tools come from? They are there because somebody made them or somebody left them. They got preserved. So we have such old sites. And then Indian subcontinent has a continuous occupation. Sites in Europe, in Africa underwent climate changes. Even the Fertile Crescent, where your agriculture rose, which we call as the Levant, that also today is a desert. Climate here has always been suitable. There has never been an ice age at all, but it was not that you cannot live here. So we have always had a presence here. Secondly, a lot of domestication, like brinjal was domesticated, a lot of indigenous, varieties. We have crop varieties being domesticated, used. The amount of flora and fauna is tremendous. And also the position of the subcontinent is such that it is in between. So if somebody is coming out of Africa, they either go to Europe or they come to Asia. The ones coming to Asia will obviously come to India because it is so favorable. Why would they not come? So that is why India is very important. In fact, many people suggest that the Acheulean stone tool technology originated in India because we have very old sites. Some people even go so far to say that Homo erectus originated in India. It evolved in India. So prehistorically, we are very, very rich. Then comes Mehergarh, which is in present-day Pakistan, which are 8,000 years old, which are again very rich. You have an entire 8-9 meter habitation. Then you have the Indus Valley. Then after that, even for 1500 years, when there was a climate catastrophe going on, India was still thriving. We had a rural-based culture, rural agronomic culture, and then we start off with our Vedic culture. So never has there been a lull period. So it has got something for everyone if you want to come. So it's very,
How can India change the image in the archaeological world? What needs to be done to really say, hey, listen, we know more than any of you know?
So first things first is that our laboratories need to get international acclaim. Right now, our laboratories are not very well respected because they say that you lack the technology. So that would mean we would need more funding from the government, more setting up of laboratories to look at data, then allowing more sites to be preserved, like in Turkey, the Çatalhöyük site. As soon as they found it, they completely put a shed over it and they completely preserved it. We need to get that kind of a thing that, okay, the site is very old. It has got a World Heritage value. So respect from that point of view, preservation should be done more, stringently, more consciously. and more people should come into the field, I would say. And
I said that you said something about the labs have to be done. What we, at least personally, I know about understanding history and paleontology is all about carbon dating. So could you inform us a bit about carbon dating and what are the new carbon dating or dating processes, okay, that have evolved?
Okay. So carbon dating is basically, okay, dating as a whole is of two kinds, relative and absolute. Relative dating is where you are indirectly trying to find the age of an object. Now, relative dating would mean something like stratigraphy. So you look at the layers in the soil, and obviously the soil which is on top is newer, the soil which is below is older. So if you find something below the older soil, obviously the age, okay, this is so and so years old, it gets clarified. But this is an indirect method. Then this is like, for example, near Pune, there is this place called as Morgaon. So around, there is this Toba volcano in Indonesia, which has undergone mega eruptions in the past, which we call as the YTT, Young Toba Tephra. Tephra is the word used for volcanic sediment. So now what happened was, near Morgaon, the stone tools were found below this tephra. So automatically now what has happened, the stone tools are dated to below 75,000 years age. So that is how we do relative dating. Next is we do seriation. Like we compare it to similar styles. Like for example, if in a particular age, somebody is using blue paint on a particular piece of pot, and then suddenly it gets stopped, then we try to compare that style. And another one is fluoride dating. This we do in terms for bones, like bones which get embedded in the, or which are buried, they start absorbing fluoride from the soil. So how much fluoride have they taken in is measured. Absolute methods is where archaeology has really developed. C14 is one of them, but now C14 we only can use for samples which are 30,000 to 40,000 years ago. That is the accuracy and the upper limit. Now samples which are much older, like fossils are much older, and bone tools are much older, stone tools are much older, we have to use other ways. So one is thermoluminescence. Thermoluminescence we do for pottery. So basically it measures the last time the quartz in a particular sample was fired. So that is done for pottery. Then we do something called as what is this? Archaeomagnetmetry. So we all know that the Earth's poles have switched. So the last time the Earth's poles switched, that boundary is called as a Bruns-Martinuma boundary. So any tool before that will have a different polarity. The iron before that will have a different polarity. So we take a tool which is rich in iron, let's say a stone tool, atom showing. If it shows the opposite poles, then we can date it correctly. Then another is dendrochronology, where we count the number of rings. So if let's say you have found something along with a bark, tree bark or a twig. Now they are in the same level of soil. So we will count the number of rings in that particular twig, the cambium layers, to understand. Then another one is fission track dating. So this is done for stone tools. So as soon as, because there's a natural radiation in stone, in magma, these magma stones, volcanic stones or rocks. So over a period of time, they start losing, they undergo radiation. They start losing U-238 uranium, they start getting converted to thorium. So when it is radiating, it leaves tracks. So we count the number of tracks and we see, okay, how far along did this process start? So that is called as fission track dating. Then there's a hydration dating, where on volcanic glass, we count the number of layers water or hydration layer has developed. The number of layers is equivalent to how much time it takes for the hydration layer to develop, which is a standardized module. Then that is one more. Then AMS is accelerated mass, where we accelerate the atoms and ions in a particular object and try to calculate the radiation and the conversion. So relative absolute dating is phenomenal. So allowing us to actually date rocks which are 3 billion years old. So for dating 3 billion year old rocks, we use potassium argon dating, where we actually heat the rock, we radiate the rock, and then we calculate the amount of conversion which has happened. So now C4, we have gone beyond C14, luckily. So
Oh, okay, a lot of work. Considering so much of work that you're doing, what is a particular day in your life? Can you show us pictures and can you show us, the
yes,
labs and what? That will be interesting. Just take us to what, if tomorrow I want to be an archaeologist, what will be my day look like?
yes, I'll just show you I'll just share a presentation which I had just made for this. So this is at our largest site. So here we are doing, so this stage comes much later. As you can see, the trenches have built out and we are able to identify the burial sites. While handling burials, specifically looking to extract the DNA in these. So that is why blue colored suits, which prevents DNA contamination. In fact, when we were doing this, we all had saliva swabs and hair so that our DNA contaminated, and if it has got contaminated, they're able to differentiate.
Oh. Sonika, I lost you, so can you go back? Yeah. Yeah, your audio is off. No.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
So then before closing the site in the evening, we always take one photography round. So here we are trying to capture this because the evening sun is less, so that's why we do it at a height. Now, this is how we understand the site. So within the first 1 or 2 days, a trial trench is dug up, as you can see, where it has got 2 levels to it. So here we are understanding the stratigraphy as to, is it viable to dig over here? Is it viable to open the site at this particular point? If yes, then can we go ahead or not? And then once this happens, this is our work. So that is me over here. This is a Harappan skeletal. This is you can see it is buried with the funerary object is there next to the head. And this was a female, if I'm not wrong, if I remember. And we are first cleaning it, then this would have been dried, and then it would have been lifted. And when we were doing this work, there was one night when suddenly at 3 o'clock, the farmers came to us. One farmer actually came to us that, please come quickly, you have to see this. Went to his field, and there one skeleton was found. So there he told me, please, you do whatever, lift the skeleton at night, because if farmers get to know that skeletons are coming in my field and all, then they will burn my field because they consider it inauspicious. So I will lose my entire kheti. At that time, mustard was in season. So we lifted one skeleton at night, and that was under spot and torchlight and everything. And that was one experience. And then when we came back next morning, then he was very happy that, okay, my field is saved. This is once the excavation is on, as you can see the layers, obviously then we start hiring local help. It is very good to have local people on the site because they understand the soil better. So there are times when the people have come and they have told us कि अच्छा see यहाँ से मिट्टी बदली है, like soil has changed. So we immediately document the stratigraphic point. So they are also able to tell us and give us a lot of information. This is the famous pigeonhole section. As you can see the layers, each of them is a stratigraphic value. So the white layer is a habitation site. One of the ways to identify a site in field is that it will have a white color. The phosphate content of the soil increases. So before this you have brown. So this was possibly a virgin soil where there was no habitation. White layers indicate habitation. That is one way to identify sites in field. Now, coming to the prehistoric part, Narmada, I've worked a lot over here. In fact, I'm a prehistorian, as paleontology would suggest. So Narmada is one of the major rivers where we have a lot of fossil localities. It has got a very wide breadth. It has got one of the highest flood deposits. In fact, 8 to 12 meters is a normal flood deposit for Narmada. And this is on the banks here. Here we are looking at the stratigraphic profile and we're trying to see, okay, from where can we start our work. This is the famous Hathnora, from where the only hominid fossil find from India has been documented and accepted. The Hathnora Ghat there, this is a fossil. So it has completely fossilized, it is completely embedded. The fossil that we find in Narmada on Hathnora beds are specifically rolled fossils. So they are secondary contextual fossils. So we cannot really say that, okay, the person might be here, died here, buried here. No, the person might, or the animal would have died somewhere upstream, got rolled, and then got a secondary burial. So most of the fossils are very rounded and, they're quite damaged also. This is just a closer view, and just to give you an idea, I've just put this one cap next to it. You can see how, it looks a little like a bone also. You can see the Harvatian canal systems and all side by side here. So I just thought of putting the Dixonia fossil, which was in plain sight at the Bhimbetka cave near Narmada, again in Hoshangabad, and it never got noticed. Now, Dixonia is one of the oldest animals. It's around 530 million year old animal. It was prevalent at that time. Now, the fossil of that animal is found here, which means that the Indian subcontinent is that old, specifically this particular part of the continent. This, as you can see here, this is actually an imprint, not the real fossil, but the imprint of the fossil. Now coming to just stone tools, at how we find them on the first look. So this is how they would be embedded, and you just have to identify stone tools. Unlike natural tools, natural stones will not undergo proper erosion. They won't be rounded. They would have very specific cuts and, you can say naps to it. Like in this, you can see a stone will not break in this way naturally. It has to be broken like that. So that is how we know, okay, this is a stone tool. This is not something which is found naturally. So again, you can see here we are just analyzing. These are scrapers in my hand, and these are hand axes. This is part of the Acheulean stone tool industry. So this is that old. You can see how one, stone, the tool surface has been taken off from here, one flint from here, one from. So it has been very deliberately been done. So this is obviously not natural. This is again how stratigraphy would see. So you can clearly see how the soil is changing. So here, this is an indication of climate. So till here we have black soil, which indicates a very good, rich, high moisture, clayey soil, good environment, lot of light coming in, dry soil. So again, there was a period of aridity coming in, and which has somewhere continued in the Hathnora, and today we know Madhya Pradesh is not so high on monsoons. It is continuing. So you can see this part would have been the most high on rainfall. And comparing it to the pigeonhole section, there is no white deposit. So this means that there was no human habitation in this area. It is a completely virgin soil, completely just based on geology. This is what a paleo channel looks like of Narmada, one of the places from where it used to flow in the past. And we were just calculating the bed and trying to see if any rolled tools or any rolled fossils were there. So these are the best today in a place called as Ghansi, as I've written. Then another thing for this is undisclosed shelter. We are still working on its share the location. So this is the share. In this place where we are still kind of documenting the rock art, this is white color. This is most probably Mesolithic and late. You can see a late Mesolithic. You can see some gentlemen with some sword and all. So this is in comparison to.
Yes, Sonika, we got you back. Sonika, unmute yourself.
Then, as I was saying, white is much older and reds are comparatively newer to that. Then we have, so what, this is a mass spectrometer. This is the machine which I have used for my work. We analyzed isotopes over here to reconstruct past climate. So I've used fossils of elephants, taken the isotope signatures from them, and tried to understand the aridity, the climate in the Indian subcontinent, and how this animal survived and why certain species of it got extinct. So this is at IITM Pune, and here we do carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and helium, and we get our results over here. And this is our fossils in field. This is the elephant tooth which I had actually worked on. This is from Narmada. This is from Manjra, MNJ. And this is one of the fossils that we had found. As you can see, this is an elephant jawbone, the lower jawbone, with the molar teeth still embedded here. So this is our repository from where we have stored all the fossils. And here we take the powders have been taken from the teeth over here. Serially, they have taken them and then have analyzed them. So this is my day-to-day work for 3 years in Pune.
Okay. No, I think it's absolutely fascinating as to what we all need to learn. There is somebody who's asked you, this other asked you, can you suggest any nice documentaries to watch?
Yes, I was just.
Okay, if you can type it on that. You know, I think we need to take this conversation further to levels of how can we get parents, children, teachers, schools to get excited about history. I think the whole journey should begin there, and that's exactly what Hoopsters is trying to do. Is how do you get people excited about subjects?
Yes.
You know, today if you look at a child or a parent, the first question they ask me is, why should we study history? You know, milta kya hai usme? So I think we should actually work on a series of these kind of films where we talk about what is exciting, you know, to make it and address it only to a specific group. So they sort of enjoy why they should study history. And also, I think organizations like yours and ours, like Hoopsters, for example, we should somewhere collaborate to see how we can make it exciting.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's what our journey should be in the future. So that's one part. And since you're having a bad network today, I won't take this further.
Yes.
But we should do a series on the subject of history and archaeology, because I think there's a lot to learn.
Yes.
It is not just about digging stuff, but I mean,
And
I enjoyed the last 90 minutes. I mean, it's crazy what all one can learn.
yeah.
But tell me one just to end the whole thing on a fun level, and we will talk about what you guys are doing in terms of Delhi walks and stuff. But I think it should be a very focused area of conversation,
Yes.
because I think you guys are doing some amazing work. So if I can have your team and you on board for that conversation,
Definitely,
we
sir.
can do it as soon as possible. Because my whole idea of Hoopsters is get children excited. Because if you don't get the next generation excited, you're losing out on a lot of talent.
True. True.
But tell me, before we end this conversation, there are a lot of films like Raiders of Lost Ark or Jurassic Park. How have they influenced the understanding of paleontology, archaeology among the mind of the common man?
So it's a mixed thing. Raiders of Lost Ark is absolutely, it's trash, because they show you the person destroying more sites than actually conserving them. You never work in that.
Spielberg will not like you, and
Yeah.
okay, so I don't think he'll appreciate that.
You will not like me at all. So is your, I think there was some Angelina Jolie's movie also.
Yeah, I know.
Where, so
Tomb
archaeology is
Raider.
not, yeah, Tomb Raider. Archaeology is not destruction. It is, yes, you have to dig a bit, like so when we do excavations, we are so conscious. The entire trench, the soil is not thrown away. Like, it is so easy that, okay, you're emptying the trench, collect the soil and give it, just throw it away. No, we collect the soil and we refill the trench and we seal the trench. So it is so consciously done. We don't even throw the soil that we are using to remove. So it is about conservation and preservation more than destroying. And some movies have got people excited, like the Jurassic Park series got people excited about dinosaurs. In India, we had theme parks of dinosaurs coming up in Pragati Maidan and these places. But now we need to go beyond that. India is not known for dinosaurs. India is known for other fossils also. In fact, you do not get dinosaurs in India because the Deccan Trap erupted 65 million years ago. That was the upper age of dinosaurs, what we call as the Triassic Jurassic period. So whatever dinosaurs you want to find, it is going to be way beneath the basaltic trap. So you don't find anything in the peninsular region. So India is not high on that. So we have other fossils. The Shivaliks are rich in fossils. The Gujarat, the salt plains are rich in fossils. So these areas need to get targeted. We need to be more excited about other animals. And to some extent, yes, it would make them interested, but then it won't do that good. We really need to do more. Like how Mummy series started the interest in Egyptology, that has not yet happened here.
So what do you think we should do to get people interested?
Firstly, we have to make the artifacts accessible to them. Like even in our laboratories, when children come in for different schools, they look at a fossil for the first time. The sheer joy on their face, you can't explain. Have some rare fossils. In fact, after once or twice, we had to put our rare fossils up in the upper shelves because they could not stop touching them. We had to tell them, okay, that is the amount of joy they have. Get them more involved, like show them, take them on live excavations, allow them to help out. Like in foreign countries, you have summer internships where university students come to help out and learn. Allow it to happen at 12th level. Just they don't need to handle the evidences, that they can just come and see that what is going on. Secondly, it needs to be introduced as a proper subject. Like I would say, history and archaeology. You cannot understand history without understanding archaeology. Like history is just telling you, okay, so and so king ruled from this time to this time. Who told you that? Where is it written? Who deciphered the script? Which coins dates say so? All that comes from archaeology. So these two fields need to be taught, and from an early age. And I think at home also, um, I think parents should, as in thing Sujata has asked me about documentaries, I'll just tell you, besides documentaries, you should, inculcate this questioning, or, you should tell them, okay, you're seeing something, what is it? Okay, you see this animal, okay, you're seeing an elephant. Do you know how old elephants have been in the country? They have been there for so many years. Which is your favorite animal? Hippos were found here. Like, keep the conversations going. Climate change is like a very relevant topic which is happening. So, last time, when did the climate change? Are we due for another ice age? Okay, what is an ice age? If they're seeing a movie on ice age, have conversations which develops these things.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think that's exactly what's missing. We lack knowledge, so we lack curiosity, and that's why there's no conversation. You know, I think that's the biggest problem as far as the Indian society is concerned. There just doesn't seem to be a curiosity embedded in them. And since you do Delhi walks, what is the kind of reactions you get from your the people who join your walks?
So the reactions are very, very good. They sometimes, come and tell them small anecdotes about a various monument, about a particular ruler, about the cuisine. They are so thrilled to know it, and they remember those facts more, those anecdotes more than the actual knowledge. And in fact, I know people who have written, children who have written, in their exams, answers based on the Delhi walks rather what they read. If some question has come to them from the Qutub complex, or something has come from the Mehrauli archaeological park, they don't remember what they read in the book. They remember what they saw. Like, oh, this guy liked this, like, so and so did this. So it acts as a wholesome knowledge, because one more thing is that we need to stop making history factual and eventual. Like, it is not event based. History has to be looked at as a whole thing. Like, if you're looking at a particular period, don't only look at the ruler, look at the people, the kind of people who were there. You had so many populations living together at the same time. What was the religions being followed? What was the diet? What was the culture? What was the literature? What was the economy? All of that would make sense to understand a period. So all that comes from archaeology and history together. You cannot isolate them to understand these things.
Okay, how is history useful in daily life? As a last question, I can ask.
History is so immensely, firstly, it's good to know where you're coming from. And every day, if you see something, if you have a natural interest in history, if you even hold a pen, it has got so much of history behind it. You can keep thinking about it. Oh, the nib, the first pens, the brush pen, how the pigments were made. There's so many things which goes on, and makes you realize and appreciate our human endeavor, I think. So, in fact, as you had said somewhere about aliens, I am a very staunch opposer of the alien theory, because once we start giving credit to extraterrestrial beings, I don't deny their presence. They might be, their universe is too big, but at least let us not underestimate our human potential by giving credit to outside people or outside beings. We have an immense potential, and history makes you realize that potential, that this is what we could do, this is what we have done, this is how we have survived, how we have adapted, and this is what we need to do in future also.
Okay, I mean, very interesting, spoken like a true scientist. But I think the alien story is also quite exciting. If you just want to know about it, it's
Yeah.
not like you believe it or agree it. Or I think we still haven't evolved enough to understand what the real truth of our past is. So it's nice to keep your minds about. I think we should have a discussion about aliens and this. Because I meet a lot of people who say I don't believe it, or somebody says I believe it. Okay, but don't believe is about 99.9%. But that's fun. That's where the discussions start. I think we need these opinions and doubts, so there can be discussions. There's no fun if both of us agree on the same thing.
Yes.
You know, I, and how do you think something like Hoopsters? And we have begun the journey today by getting people to appreciate the past, appreciate history, or whatever you want to call it, history or archaeology or whatever. I think it's all about the past, to put it in a short sentence. And there's so much to learn. Like, it's not just about the kings and the war, which is unfortunately what history is teaching us today. It's all about the wars. He fought against this and she fought against this kind of story. How do you think Hoopsters can contribute to creating an interest in these kind of unconventional subjects?
So I think firstly, Hoopsters can really reach out to children, because the sooner or the earlier they get interested, the better. And then giving them the right knowledge and the right ideas about how to pursue it, that what you want to know, what you want to study is not irrelevant. There is scope for it. There is a way to do it. And this is how it entails, and exposing them more and more to these kinds of things, because schools don't do it as of now. They don't have the resources, they don't have the accessibility. We as research scholars in the field, after like so many years, are able to step into the laboratories. Children are not able to do it so young. So that accessibility can be provided, that guidance can be provided, mentorship can be provided, that this is how you go about these things. And also like getting them more interested in, because okay, uh, as I was saying, the scientific bend of mind, like making them ask questions as to why this is happening, why, that can also bring in a lot of interest in children. Don't negate their curiosity is basically. And Hoopsters can provide, like as we were having a discussion, activity sheets, formal tools through which they can understand and put down their experience on pen and paper, or on any other teaching aid. So these can be provided, because schools really are hard pressed to work like that. They don't really do it. Either they would outsource it to institutes like us, okay, school trip to the laboratories and so institute, show them this, show them that. But now, because of COVID, that is also not happening. People are not able to do that. So Hoopsters can actually bridge that gap between them and us.
So what do you think you want to do in the future in this field? Where does one see Sonika, or possibly the Dr. Sonika, who's going to get the title tomorrow in the next few months? What does Dr. Sonika see herself as?
So, sir, I am obviously going to be, I'm already writing, publishing side by side. I'm going to be a lot entrenched into the isotope research. The isotopes are the next level for research in the country. And luckily now more and more labs are being set up. So I'm going to be working on that. Reconstructing climate, reconstructing migrations, how things happened, how things will happen. And hopefully maybe somewhere someday, success somewhere, I'll get my dues. But one thing is that I'm not doing it, there is not much money in this field at the moment, so it is not monetary for me. It is just pure passion. At the end of the day, when I sleep, I'm very happy. My husband knows the day when I submit a paper, or when my paper comes, like it is like very nice. So it is just fulfillment.
I think that sums up the title of the talk we had today, The Joy of Archaeology. Okay, we got a few audience here. Any questions? We are open to it for the next 5 minutes. Anybody wants to ask anything?
Sujata, for the documentaries, National Geographic has these limited edition documentaries, so those are quite good. Series of Stone Age, there is this one documentary which can be shown to children, and rest I'll share it with sir, and then he can always put it on the channels. I can send him the links.
Thank you.
It's fascinating to meet people, and it's very interesting to meet people like you who have gone down the untrodden path, or at least not the most trodden path. And what is really exciting is the clarity in which you speak and bring out the knowledge. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do, to take things out there. Thanks, Sonika, and we'll definitely keep in touch, because we need to go the next few levels. I mean, suddenly the video has liked you after the one and a half hours. It's functioning perfectly well now.
Okay.
But we do need to take it further. And I think let's do a series on this subject and get your other team involved. Let's get the excitement of history and our past out there. I like the kind of attempts which the Western world is doing, in small little things. I don't know, I was discussing yesterday with you, there's this whole thing on horrible history.
Yes.
It's just such fun reading, and it gets you interested more and more. I think we should in India also try getting into these things at a different level, rather than combining everything with in terms of mythology or religion or culture and all that. It can just be an interesting subject to discuss by itself. I think we should start that trend. So thank you, Sonika, for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so
And
much.
well, if there's anyone out there pursuing an unconventional job and would like to share his or her experiences with the world, please do connect with us. And till then, have a nice day. And Sonika, also please send us any articles you have got, which we can put up on our website. We
Yes.
are building a whole library of sorts for people to go through, and we'll keep in touch
Yes.
in the future. Okay. And since your husband is online, I think he's still there. Yeah, he's there, and he's
Yeah, sir, still there.
Yes. So as you promised, we need to get into your army level now. Okay.
For sure.
See the combination of the military and archaeology for a change. Let's see how if there's a connect at all. Okay.
Since historical times, I mean, like army has been trying to save themselves.
Okay, let's do that. And thank you very much, Sonika. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
It's
you.
one of the longest talks we had, in spite of all the video glitches. I think we have to stop it because it is long past due. But we will do more on this series, Sonika, and I need your support on it.
Okay.
Just 1 minute, sir. Just one. I will take 1 minute.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Sonika ji. I came very late, but still I could able to get that what you were telling, and then it was really interesting. And then finally, what I really liked is about this archaeology and all those things. Instead of what came up in the discussion is, instead of worrying about who ruled and how they fought together, instead of how they were exchanging their cultural thing and all, and that would be nice, and it will be giving an entire gamut of how the life was and how we have taken what and all the things we have taken from them, and how to we need to preserve. And as you rightly said, it's all about preservation, right? So I really liked it, and thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.